Welcome back or welcome front if it's the first time joining us. As always, I am Joshua with Weird Gaming Adventure. Over there is Rami, aka Gospel, aka together we are known as the Weird Gaming Gospel Pod, and we have a super duper special guest today. We have Gabe from the Wannabe Critic YouTube channel. How you doing, Gabe?
I'm good. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. Glad to have you on the show. Just to let everybody know the connection here. Gabe was actually the engineer, I guess producer in some ways of my old show. And now what we're going to do, since we just did a show, we just did our typical MMO show. We're talked out. So I said, Gabe, you host your own show. It's super cool, called the Wannabe Critic. I want you to first tell us what exactly the Wannabe Critic is all about, and then let it fly. You're going to be the host on our show tonight. You're going to talk to us.
You called me literally like an hour and a half ago or 2 hours ago, and you were like, I was like, we're going to be a little, tired after all this, so do you want to host our show? And I was thinking to myself, only Josh would ask this question. No, but I thought about it. I was like, it's always, I honestly feel like that could be potentially like the best way to introduce someone into your show is like literally ask them to just ask you questions. You know what I mean? So here I am. I'm excited to be here. As far as the Wannabe Critic goes, yes. And by the way, yes, we did spend some time together on a very weird fantasy. I feel like you tried to get that to be, a very weird fantasy football podcast. But I was like, dude, a very weird fantasy just rolls off the tongue so much better. Like, and I have to be honest, like, for the time I spent, I enjoyed it a lot. And I've always, enjoyed keeping in touch with you. And, obviously we're friends in real life. So it's, it's not hard to keep in touch. But, yeah, I'm excited to be here. I really appreciate you guys inviting me. But as far as like Wannabe Critic stuff, so that started kind of like as an idea back in the day. Me and my buddy Jace, we started a podcast called Geekly Biweekly, and one of our segments was called the Wannabe Critics, and I always loved that segment, so then I just thought I would embody that persona, and it got life got a little busy for him, so what we do is we do movie reviews, game reviews, reactions. We've started a separate podcast called the Wannabe Collective, where people in the podcast house, doesn't necessarily have to be movie reviews, but like kind of everyone gets a chance to kind of do their own thing within that within the production house and that umbrella. And I'm really, really happy with where that's going. Of course, I still have the Wannabe Critic podcast, where me and another co-host of mine, Ethan Maestri, we do Punch Counter Punch once a month and some other stuff over there. But I'm always doing a bunch of different stuff. In case you guys
don't know, I'm going to cut them off right there. The Punch Counter Punch. That is when one person punches one person in the nuts, and then the other person then counter punches right in the nuts. Is that right? Is that true?
Basically, straight up Rochambeau style.
Rochambeau.
So, yeah, I mean that's basically what it is. So the whole thing with the Wannabe Critic, idea is like we all have opinions. Unless you do this professionally, like, and you're making a living doing this exclusively, everyone's opinion. And even if you do, like, everyone's opinion is just as valid as anyone else's. And I think it's funny to have these, like, super serious conversations regarding pop culture, video games, movies, music, whatever, and get so into it. And it's like, oh my God, like, these guys are just wannabes. And yeah, that's exactly what we are. So there's a sense of we like to have meaningful conversation, but we don't want to take ourselves too seriously. So that's all things want to be there. But,
Gospel needs to take himself seriously because he makes more money on this than I do. Yeah, Gospel. Like, Gospel makes more money than I do on the channel started by me. That sucks.
Well,
so let's
that sounds like a you problem.
Yeah, that's true.
Sound like a
Shut up!
Don't
don't end a good thing for me.
Yeah, exactly. So I have to ask, like, if you guys are giving me the reins, I'm gonna do what I feel like I do best, which is host. You have this MMO podcast, right? What spurned this, and how did y'all connect?
You want to go, Josh, or you want me to go, Josh, or you want me to go?
How about you go with what spurned? Is it spurred or spurned?
I don't know.
Let's first answer that.
Well, spurred or spurned.
Okay. You tell me what spurred your channel, Gospel.
So for me, I had just been making videos for Star Wars Galaxies, and I had made like a bunch of like PvP videos with just music in the background on SWG Emu over the years, and then I decided to take it a little bit more seriously because I wanted to promote a server called Restoration 3, which is emulating the combat upgrade era of the game as best as possible. And through my videos on Resto 3, Josh saw my videos and he said, "Hey, you want to collab?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it," because I didn't really see a reason why not to. And so we decided to do a 24-hour stream for Resto 3's launch, and that went with Josh falling to sleep and me staying up for 24 hours, powered by like Tezo chai and milk. And then after that, he was like, "You want to do a podcast?" I was like, "Sure, let's do a podcast." So we just started doing a podcast. That went well for a few months. And then he's like, "Yo, I want to see about hiring you." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So he hired me to edit videos and make videos for the channel. So here I am. Here we are.
Okay.
Yes. And on my end, well, I guess it all started with adventure games. I did pretty well. Got about 1,300 subs in like 7 months doing adventure games, super niche. And then started doing some Star Wars Galaxies videos along with the adventure games. And Gospel was the only other person really doing it effectively. So I had another podcast partner prior to Gospel. Super talented, very informative, but he wasn't what we were shooting for, what I was shooting for on like the family friendly aspect. And also I pretty much got voted off the islands with him. It's like everyone says, "Okay, we will not watch your show if he stays on." So I canceled that show, and Rami, aka Gospel, and I had already been working on some stuff, as Gospel said, and we're now at like 38, episode 38.
Yeah,
and not too shabby,
Yeah, I have to say, you know, I've consumed Josh's content, right? Like, and its various iterations. Whether you're talking to him about sports, whether you're talking to him about adventure games, whether you're talking to him about Star Wars Galaxies, right? It doesn't take very long to see like what Josh's passions are. So one thing, whenever I was working with Josh, it was one of those things where it was like reining in Josh is just impossible. So Josh is gonna do whatever he wants to do, and I find that super admirable because, you know, a sense of integrity, I think, is inherently impressive in this day and age whenever it comes to content creation, because everyone is always so competitive about it, right? And to me, saying like, no, I'm not going to conform to a standard, I'm not going to conform to X, Y, and Z, or like to these things, like that was something I always super admired about Josh. So it's nice to finally see that he's found someone that seems, I don't want to say, you know, that you seem too mellow, Gospel, but I do want to say, you know, you seem a little more reined in. So I was like, okay, I work in production for a living. I know how it goes behind the scenes. I know you got to have those conversations where it's like, hey, this is what we need to do. Okay. This is how it's going to go. And if not, you know, you can fire me. That's fine. But no, I like your guys's dynamic. And I have to say, from what I've listened to, I had texted Josh privately and I was like, you know, why aren't you making this audio? You know, why is this audio not available to, you know, public?
I'm lazy
on podcast services. So Gospel, you know, Josh, we've established you're lazy. So Gospel, I have to ask you a question. Is there any chance of seeing, you know, this MMO podcast come to streaming podcast services?
like Apple and Spotify and all that. I don't know. I've actually got to talk to Josh about that. He's more on the business end of things. I would certainly be down to upload it. They're really easy to put in audio format, and yeah, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities if Josh is down.
Oh, of course I'm down. just the whole thing is, I think both of you know how busy I am, like behind the scenes and everything. I know you say it just takes like 15 minutes. Yeah, but you got to put real production into it. You got to give it, you got to clip it and all that stuff a little bit. But yeah, hey, Rami, Gospel, if you want to do that, let's do it.
All right, I'm down.
I'll become a weekly listener, because literally it is the difference, right? Like, because we're all kind of in this space together. Like, it is the difference in having that fan versus not having that fan. And for me, I do not, for shows that I love, I do not make the time to sit down and watch those shows. But you know what I do make time for? I make time to listen to them on my commute and my car ride, because I genuinely want to hear what those people have to say. It has nothing to do with like the creators themselves. It's like, God, man, I wish this was audio, because that is the convenient, right? That's the convenient time to like listen to it. So if that happens, you're gonna have at least one new regular listener. Is all I have to say.
Hey, YouTube's the new podcast, right? Is that right? No,
I don't pay for premium personally. But I do have to say, being on more platforms is always a testament to your professionalism. So
it's kind of weird on Weird Gaming Adventure. So we have these podcasts. Generally, they get between, I don't know, over the course of a month, maybe 200. We've had some that have gotten 1,000 views or something, and they get like ridiculous retention. And so we have some videos that obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, we have some videos that do really, really good. This show makes like 15 times the amount of AdSense as anything else, because we do an hour and 10-minute show, and the retention's like 25 to 30 minutes. And so we make a little bit of cash off of that. But you know what? Let's see what we can do. Well, I tell you what, yes, Gabe, we will have you put it on podcast for.
Am I being paid for this, or am I just like, no, I'm just kidding. No. In all honesty, I think it's certainly the thing you mentioned. You made a comment. It was like, oh, YouTube's the new podcast, right? I think it's the other way around. Podcast is the new YouTube. So, it's one of those things like, we see, for instance, like Impulsive, right? Or like Joe Rogan or something like that, who's literally been doing podcasts forever. For years at this point, and now it's like it's starting to kind of blow up, and it seems like everyone and their mom has a podcast nowadays. And I think with you guys, your content and subject matter is so inherently niche. It's one of those things. It's like, if it takes the extra 15 minutes to just throw it up on an audio platform, like, what's the difference? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether it gets videos or not. I know for me, working at the outlet that I work at, the audio numbers don't do nearly as good as the video numbers, but that's okay. At least you need to have the audio, if it makes sense, I think. You know what I mean? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let's just tell Gospel and Gabe for a long time he was preaching, hey guys, you got to have multiple ways of putting out all the platforms. So, back even when we were like doing the show on like the Jock ESPN radio, and then we were doing like the show in the studio or in my home studio, he's like, man, we need to stream this. It was like the early stages of streaming too. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like work, and I gotta, like, man, I wish I listened to him early. And we did it all, both of us in the home studio too. And so yeah, okay, I'll take you up on that. I shall do that. It'll happen.
I'm excited. So that moves me to my next kind of pushing this conversation along, right? Since you have made the Wannabe Critic the host, that was your first mistake. You know what I mean? No, I'm just kidding. So MMOs, right? Was that just like your love of Star Wars Galaxies? Like, that was pretty much the defining factor, right? And then you started realizing like, oh, there's this litany of other games that we also like. Because I know you asked me before I came on the show, you were kind of like, all right, have you played any MMOs? And it's like, well, yeah, I've played a dozen MMOs or half a dozen or whatever, but I've never, you can't beat an MMO, right? I mean, that's not really a thing unless it's New World. But, was it one of those things like once you kind of started connecting, like, because you guys have like a real natural chemistry, right? So, and this is your kind of your only connection is Star Wars Galaxies. So, kind of, let me know, like, what made that kind of blossom, that relationship? Was it just the love of MMOs in general, or was it literally just because of Star Wars Galaxies?
You take that one, Robbie.
So we both love Star Wars Galaxies, but we're also like big MMO players. So no, I know, for example, Josh is looking forward to Ashes of Creation. And so I think we're also not just MMO players, but we're also MMO sandbox players, which breeds a different kind of individual, I think. Like
we're elitist MMOs.
Yeah.
Right. So like I want to kind of like know about that like a little bit more, because for me, I think the MMO I probably spent the most time in, right? There's probably 3. I spent a lot of time in Destiny. I spent a lot of time in Elder Scrolls Online. And I have a video series where I made videos on RuneScape, right? Total Noob plays RuneScape and stuff like that. So do you kind of fall into that category of like, oh, like classic WoW and like RuneScape and like all these other like genre defining MMOs, like those are king, or like kind of what's your modern take on the MMO scene right now?
So those are what they call theme park MMOs. I think all except for RuneScape, maybe. RuneScape is probably theme park too. Sandbox MMO. What's that?
I'd say RuneScape is more sandbox.
Yeah,
Or at least like the older versions of them.
Yeah, old school. Not RuneScape 3, but old school.
Yeah,
that's what I play.
Yeah. So sandbox MMOs are like it's like own niche genre, and we definitely have like passion for that. But it also is like I think we agree on like it seems like we met together through our passion for our MMOs and like Star Wars Galaxies and sandbox MMOs. We're hyped for similar games, and that's all good and stuff. But I think we also have like somewhat similar values as well, so it ends up working out way better in like that area because like if you mismatch with values, I think with a lot of people, you can just end up like offending each other all the time or whatever. And we're also both pretty upfront with each other. So I think that helps out a lot as well, because some people like, you don't want to feel like you're walking on eggshells when you're doing stuff like this. So I think Josh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna piggyback off that. Obviously I pay him, but I give him the freedom to do what he wants. I mean, for the most part, I make requests, and he and I could talk. Like we talk each day, we, like Rami says, we have similar values. We don't have, if we feel that, hey, maybe texting isn't the right way to go, we'll fire up Discord or talk like that. And that's always one good thing. Now, interesting little anecdote. Gospel, Rami, and I have known each other for about 15 years.
Yeah.
Without even knowing that we knew each other.
Yeah. Turns out
He's in Texas.
Yeah, it turns out we played on the same server back in the day when Star Wars Galaxies was in its heyday. So, and we knew each other and we played against each other. And I didn't
like the same guild for a little bit.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, we didn't even realize it.
Do you even know how low of a chance that is? And this is Star Wars Galaxies in its heyday. There was like millions of people that were. Well, that's probably not true.
I was gonna say, like, come on, Josh. Millions.
Josh, there's like hundreds of thousands of people on several different, like 30 different servers and stuff, and we managed to be on the same server, like battling each other. His name was Gothica.
Yeah.
In the game, and mine was Snake's Hiss and Ghost Pirate or something. And in the same, he was in my guild for like a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Asylum, which is that we were on the show and we were talking about past. And we're like, wait, What?
Yeah, we had already been doing the show for a few months, and we actually play on the we were in the same guild. Like, we knew each other. We played against each other eventually as well. And I was like, wow,
That's
okay.
crazy. Like, that is a crazy connection. Like,
yeah.
Well, and here's the thing about how 1 in a million that is. Like, playing on the same server, but also
Not
having
too much. Come on, Gabe. 1 in a million.
1 in a million, man. Okay, 1 in 59,723.
That's
No.
arbitrary.
Yeah, but having that connection, but also not only that, like, I think about, right, the classic gaming trope is like, oh, like, gamers don't know how to talk, right? Like, gamers don't know how to, like, communicate and, like, be social and all this other stuff. You guys are able to hit it off and have a natural chemistry and, you know, work in a production where you're doing stuff that's, like, really, really specific and, like, niche. And that was one thing I've always liked about Josh's work is it's inherently niche. I'm like, adventure games? I'm like, looking at his views, I'm like, how? Like, how is that even a thing? And then, you know, but the content speaks for itself, right? Like, it's good content. And that's the content, you know, very, very clearly identifying your audience and creating content for that audience. That is literally the key success to YouTube. That is the key success to content creation, is finding your niche, defining what you want to do, and providing for that niche. And I feel like, you know, even with this show, like, it's really enjoyable. Like, I would literally hear you guys talk about, like, the weekly updates on what's happening in New World. I think one of the episodes I heard was Gospel saying, like, yeah, New World's trash. Like, it's not good.
Yeah.
And talking about and hating on it and, you know, giving detailed reasons as to why and, you know, identifying the problems. And, like, my first inclination whenever someone says something is trash is, like, to fight with them, right? But everything you were saying, I was like, even for the limited time that I put in the New World, I can see all the things that you're saying being an issue, which is a big issue. It's like for someone who's put 10 hours into the game and someone's saying all this stuff, it's like, really? Like, that's all there is to pay off? That's insane. So it's crazy that you guys have had that connection. Does that relationship just stay within this podcast pretty much? I mean, is Gospel the one who's pretty much making the majority of content for Word Gaming Adventure, or how's that working out?
I'd say, yeah, no, I'd say Gospel makes probably, well, right now, 60 to 65%. We slowed down a little bit because we were having we were doing 7, man, we were even doing like 8 videos a week, like, for a little bit. And so I think right now we have this show, which takes up which adds content, and then Gospel does about 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do like one general, and then I do a comedy sketch, usually like around gaming, on the channel once a week. And so, yes, Gospel does the majority, and he calls a lot of the shots too as to what he knows is hot, because he's very much on point when it comes to the MMO community.
Well, that was kind of my next question too, is like, for me, I've dipped my toes into these various MMOs, right? Like, you know, World of Warcraft, dipped my toes into it. Didn't stick around for very long. Elder Scrolls Online, I play it rarely. I love the game. I think it's great. It's a great game. Play it rarely. You know, Destiny 2. Love that game. I don't play it rarely. That's the one I keep up with the most. So it seems like whenever you're tackling a genre like MMOs, how can you devote the time necessary to be to have an opinion in this space and, like, really, you know, be able to, like, go toe to toe with somebody? How do you establish yourself as, like, an unequivocal, like, expert in this genre? And how do you make time for the various games required to be an expert in this genre whenever it is so time consuming? Because for me, I'll play a single player game and then I don't touch my MMO for weeks. So explain to me how that process works.
Well, for me, I keep up with a lot of the MMO news. So anything that's coming out, I usually know about it. I keep tabs on certain games. I look at aspects. I look at the company that's making games. So, for example, well, everyone was looking forward to the Amazon MMO, New World, right? Didn't turn out as expected. But I don't know. I just keep up regularly. So I'll be on Reddit. I'll be on YouTube. I listen to everything I can about MMOs. I will go watch the people who specialize in those MMOs. So, for example, SW Torista, which is a channel on YouTube here. She specializes in Star Wars: The Old Republic content. I'll watch her channel, even though I'm not playing. And I'll just keep tabs on every single MMO, at least the notable ones. Like, for example, I think like their big five are like Guild Wars 2, RuneScape, World of Warcraft, ESO, and I don't even know what the fifth one is. There's another big one out there. Oh, Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah.
And I'll go watch content creators for each specialized MMO, kind of get a feel for what's going on in those games. I've gone and watched like developer talks from GDC and see what they're saying about game design, and read old blogs and seeing what was going on there. Interesting mechanics from old MMOs that I have never played before. I think one of the most interesting mechanics I've heard about, I think it was maybe Astronaut's Call or a different game, I can't remember, but basically abilities pulled from a pool, and like there was like a pool for like power for each ability in the game. And so if an ability started being used by a lot of players, it would start automatically pulling from that pool and weakening the ability, therefore creating like a self-balancing game. Yeah, it's absolutely wild.
Incredibly, like that's a really cool mechanic.
Yeah. So there's like a lot of interesting stuff in the MMO industry. So I don't know. I just keep as much tabs as I can. I also try to keep tabs on things outside the industry that aren't that can impact the industry. For like example, the Book of Boba Fett is coming out December 29th, which is Disney Plus's new Boba Fett series. I think it's going to be like probably like 8 episodes. They're going to release once a week. So what's going to happen with this series is the population for SWTOR is going to go up. The population for Star Wars Galaxies and all its servers are going to go up. Some sales are probably going to be made for EA. So people are probably going to get into Battlefront 2, probably going to get into Jedi Fallen Order and other such games, because people like they're reminded of Star Wars, so they go back to Star Wars games, and that'll be in the limelight till like February, March. So now
Lord of the Rings Online.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings Online.
New Lord of the Rings mini series coming out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you watch what's going on, and you can kind of predict based on past behavior. And I don't know, there's certain things where there's games where they would release a trailer, I'm like, that game is gonna fail, and it just does.
You're good at that. You're freaking Nostradamus on that.
Yeah, it's
just like within the MMO space, or just in general.
In general, pretty much. For example,
yeah, I was gonna say I need some like good examples here, because Steam is inherently such a big community, right? I mean, arguably one of the biggest communities in gaming. Yeah. So for me, whenever I watch a game come out, very rarely, I mean, obviously there's these, $10 games that come out where I'm like, I mean, literally your best bet is to put out a quality game and make it free. Because there was a new game that just came out today, or coming out, it's called, it's a dragon game, like you fight dragons and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it's like real time. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, this is really cool, and it's free.
Century of Ages.
Century, correct.
I played the beta on that one.
So to me, I'm thinking, and watching it, I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, I hope this game does okay. But then I think, no, there definitely will be a community around this. Whether it's 20 or 30,000 people, you get 20 or 30,000 people in your community, you're a success, especially with a free game.
It's hard to say how that game will do, because it's like a kind of unique in the sphere it's in. But for games that I see that I predicted that will just do poorly, or at least the community die, right? Hood was one of them. Do you remember Hood?
That Outlaws and like the one where you're like invading the other person's. Yeah.
So I saw the trailer for that instantly. My friend was super hyped for it. I'm like, this game. I'm like, it's gonna have a population for 2 weeks and then it's gonna die. That's exactly what happened. And then there was another one where I was watching, like, I think it was like a video game award show or E3 or something. That couldn't have been E3. They were launching, EA launched that Rocket game, whereas like it was like a third-person arena shooter, but it was the
Battle
Rocket
Arena or whatever.
Yeah, and that was like, dude, I saw the trailer and I was like, who cares? There's a lot of
Godfall, okay, like No.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about Godfall much because they were like PS5, and I didn't know it was coming to PC, so I didn't really look too much into it. Then I learned it was on PC, and then when I looked into it, it was like dead. So, but yeah, there's a lot of things like that end up happening, where games are gonna be hyped for a moment and then die off. It's weird, right? Like, for example, with this channel specifically is Conquest of Azeroth. Conquest of Azeroth is something we covered a lot. It's a good game, but it's capped at level 30. And so I said, you know, whenever I first started the channel, I said, Josh, listen, this game just launched its trailer. It's getting tens of thousands of views. Let's do videos on this because I think it'll be like solid content and pretty easy to do. And I'm also interested in the server. And so we started getting like a lot of views very quickly. Like we got like 15,000 views on a video in like the first week or something like that. It was something crazy. Like we got, or 7,000 and it jumped up to 15,000 at some point. You know, you remember, Josh?
Yeah. It was within the first 3 days, it was at like 6,300 or something like that. It was nuts. Most of I've ever had in a long shot within that short period of time. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we started doing, I was doing like 7 videos a week. And then I think I started doing 8 just for a couple weeks, just to cover all the classes that were coming out because there were so many. There's 21. And then I saw like the light at the end of the tunnel. I was like, all right, well, or the darkness or whatever. I was like, I warned him. I was like, yo, this is gonna run out of content. Like we can't keep doing Conquest of Azeroth. Like this is gonna run short on viewership pretty soon. And it did. Like I don't know, you just kind of have to see how much is in the game. Got to get feel for it, see who's developing it, see what the progress they're making is at what speed. And I don't know, take a guess.
I'd say, and then you need to find the balance there. Okay, you've built up and this is something where he and I work well together. You know, you've built up an audience, you've built up subscribers who care about that game. So we got to figure out a way to keep them there, to keep them happy while still keeping, feeding the meter, if you will. And so, yeah, that's one thing that we've been able to do to a certain extent. Keeping things hot while they're hot, while maintaining our existing audience. And that's one great thing about the community, or the way that we are. Like, we try to sell our personality, and so they've been following us around, and that's wonderful because we each have ADD.
I mean, I'm the same way. Like, I totally get it. Like, for me, it's always that balance. Like, for me, my passion is video games, right? Like, I love talking about video games, but my music channel is the thing that pops off the most. Yeah. People love the music reactions. So it's always one of those things like, hey, I do other stuff that I like way more, that I put way more effort into, that I would really like to
total different niches there.
Check out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But you touch on something that was kind of my next thing is, for me, I run Wannabe Critic Productions. We have the Wannabe Collective. We have the Wannabe Critic podcast. We have Game Club. Inside the Wannabe Collective, there's Beer Bros East Side, like Punch Counterpunch. Like, there's all these different projects I'm doing all the time. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's all this other stuff. So for me, it's like I'm always finding that thing or focusing on that thing and making those decisions for the production house. It's like, this is what we're focusing on this week. This is what we're doing at this point in time, because literally I'm out here by myself doing it. So it can get harrowing after a while, though. Like, it can get hard because you start to really focus on things that maybe are the hottest things to talk about, but maybe you're not quite as passionate about. So how do you find that balance, like, for you personally as creators? Because for me, I find it as a really big challenge. It's like, I know I should be making music reaction videos, but I'd really like to be making Let's Plays because that's genuinely what I enjoy doing. So how do you find that balance?
What's that?
Let me start this one off, because I think this ties in with part of the last question that you asked. Like, how do you find the time, to do all of those things? So when it comes down to me, if I have a passion for something, if I truly like something, I'm going to find a way to build a business around it. You know, and if your dollar is on the line, then you're going to find a way to satisfy your dollar and satisfy your passion. So a profession built for fun. And when you have devoted something, you know, not only like you said, something that you are passionate about, but also your living, you can force time because you could take from something else, you know what I mean? It creates a flexibility in order to do it. But then you're also going to ride whatever it takes to make it happen. And I know that's kind of like the vague answer, and I'll let Gospel kind of give the specific variables on what he thinks.
So you can do what's hot, but it's hard to follow up on hot things that stay hot that you're not passionate about. Like I made a video about Fallen Earth, and I was like, man, this is gonna be hot, and it got a few thousand, like not a few thousand, got over 1,000 views, which is okay for this channel. But I didn't follow it up because I really wasn't passionate about Fallen Earth. So the lesson I learned was only really do things I'm passionate about, which is pretty easy to do in this space of like MMOs and video games and stuff. Like, for example, I really love Dark Souls. I really love Elden Ring. So I'll probably cover Elden Ring when that comes out, and maybe some stuff beforehand. But, you know, it's like, don't do it like in this specific area. You know, YouTube is a voluntary thing we do. And it is like, if you want to do something you're not passionate about, get a job at Best Buy. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you want to do. So really make this what you want to do, make it like your passion. Now, sometimes I've heard about this for streamers that are like locked into certain games, and they're afraid to switch games or whatever because they'll hurt their viewership. I think it happens on YouTube too. I've seen some channels that have just dropped off, and that's unfortunate because, you know, I think at the end of the day, what it is about, it's like, choose what you're passionate about, and like you'll either get an audience that follows, or you'll build a new audience, and that's all you can really do, I think. And anything else than that is just kind of like, whoops, I'm stuck. You know.
And remember, you're not just selling the game, you're selling yourself. Like any other sales tactic, you're selling you're selling your personality. And not just that, if you need to make money, it's your brand that you're developing, and it's the brand that's going to make money. The AdSense, you know, that's just such a small aspect. It's the brand that you sell to sponsors. It's the brand that you sell. It's your products that you can create and all those other things. And so you'll make your money in other ways outside of just following something that's popular. Because if you're following too, man, you could be super synthetic, and who wants to watch someone that is synthetic? It's cringy. You know that person isn't 100% invested. That's why some of these games, like I'm not 100% invested in some of these games. So Gospel, I hand this one off to you, buddy. You're gonna man the ship on some of these, and so I think that's the best way of describing it. Keeping flexible.
Yeah. So like, for example, I'm not like a super passionate Lord of the Rings online player or anything like that. I played it for a while when it first came out. I got to max level, got some pretty decent gear and whatnot. But he played it like way longer than I did. So when I saw that like there was news coming out that it's going to revamp, I sent it to him, and he made the video about Lord of the Rings online because he actually really loves that game because he played it a lot. So
Sucker got picked up, man. Like, but we're killing it the last couple days off our little passion projects, eh? Gospel?
Yeah, it kind of feels like we're selling ourselves and not the game.
Yeah, I think
Gospel put one out today. It's got like 2,500 views.
That's amazing.
10 hours.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think, you know, for me, it's always been that thing of there's all kinds of tips and tricks, right? Like you can put as much money as you want into your YouTube channel and like boost it, right? I mean, if you want to gain an audience, you can do that for a few $1,000s. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Like anyone can do that. But what's more satisfying? Putting money into a YouTube channel like to boost your stuff and like get all that and do that and yada yada yada, or grow it organically. I think from a business standpoint, it's way more satisfying to boost your videos and get as big as audience as you can, so you can get a return on your investment immediately, or as quick as possible. But I think from like the artist side of things, it's really easy and it makes a lot of sense to make content you're passionate about and then find that audience organically, which it seems like you guys have. For me, I'm kind of the same way as you guys, like, you know, having all these different passions, like between games, music, and podcasting. It's like I haven't really popped off like on anything, but it boils down to I'm doing what I genuinely enjoy, and that comes through more than anything. And it's nice to hear that you guys feel the same way, of kind of just you're continuing to do the things you genuinely enjoy that just so happen to be organically successful, which has to feel good. So,
And we could tell that you love like what you do through your videos. Gospel hasn't seen them before, but I have. You know, and you could tell that like you're knowledgeable and you like them through your videos. And while perhaps your channel itself isn't like bursting, you know, with
yeah,
views every single time, you have built something outside of the channel itself. You know, you do have a production company, and you know, it's had people, you know, edit videos for people, you do photography, videography, like that kind
yeah,
of thing as well. So
it's
you're
brought
telling yourself.
yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things like maybe I'm not a, you know, I make YouTube videos and I make content, but maybe my profession isn't going to be a YouTuber, you know. We talk about falling, a lot of people dislike the video editing process. And for me, it was something I didn't like at first, but then I've learned to love it. And I learned to love that process to where now that's my profession. You know, I work on various projects and I work with content teams and I do stuff and I produce stuff. And I genuinely love doing that. And while it would be amazing to make money from that, doing stuff from my own production house, that never happened. But guess what? I'm doing something that I genuinely enjoy, and that the content creator nowadays is basically like the new music producer, in that it's not your job to necessarily be the talent. It's your job to work with the idea. And you know, it's nice to see that you guys kind of have that marriage, that exact same thing, doing what you love and producing content that people genuinely resonate with. So I know you said we had about 30 minutes. I think we've gone a little bit over that. So I wanted to double check, you know, what's the pulse on the show right now?
I think it's great, man. I think like you and I, we've had a good little history. This is a nice little conversation, and you do so good. I truly, I gotta say this. You know, you're smart. I shouldn't say kid. You know, you're a smart young man. God, now I sound old. And you do a really good job, and you deserve some success. Now that I've given you some advertisement, let me give our channel a little bit of advertising. So, well, I don't know if it's the channel, but this will, I guess, coincide with the channel. So I'm telling you this right now, like I now own the Skinny Improv. And so we are going to be doing the improv over here once a month. So, well, actually twice a month. So, Gabe, if you ever want to bring your guitar before the show and get up on stage, goof around a little bit, you are welcome to do that. Rami, he's a really good musician, just so you know.
Dope. Yeah, you were saying you make music reaction videos. What kind of music?
It's one of those things I kind of let the community dictate what I do. So, you know, I started a Patreon page and I said, look, if you want to pay $10 a month, I will cover whatever you want. So I get a few, you know, I have one patron, and it kind of started with him requesting some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then other people flocked to that, and then they started requesting stuff. So I always made sure I do his reactions first, but then other people started recommending stuff. So then basically it's one of those things. It's like, look, if you want to pay $10 a month, you basically get however many requests you want, and I'll cover those first. But, you know, I'll get to your request eventually. So it's one of those things, like I'll sit down for, you know, an hour or two once a month and record like 10 reactions right in a row and film them all, edit them all, schedule them all, you know, do the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then just see kind of what happens. And that's kind of where I'm at with that one right now, is, you know, reacting to that. And I would love to incorporate some of my own music sometime, but as of right now, you know, people like seeing me react to you know, this rock music. Like as of late, I've been reacting to there's a band called The Warning, and it is a trio of young ladies. They are Spanish.
Does sound like a
and
warning.
They rock. They are so
That's
good.
the trifecta. That's a
I've
menage a
really
three of weird.
I've really been, you know, and I'll just read you some of my metrics, right? So like, you know, I was on a Ginger kick for a while. So Ginger's like a hard rock band that has a female lead singer, and she's like freaking dope. She screams, has some of like the nastiest lows I've ever heard in my life. So I've reviewed some of their stuff for a while. You know, getting, you know, 1,000 to a couple thousand views per video. Then someone was like, "Hey, if you like Ginger, you should check out The Warning because they're a all female group." So I started reacting some of their stuff, and the first video I made for that like kind of popped off. So I was like, "Well, shoot, maybe I should just start making, you know, as many videos from this band as I can." So I kind of let my community dictate where I go next, if that answers your question. So,
That's actually really cool.
yeah.
And the right way to do it. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's like, look, if you're gonna show up and watch these week after week, it might as well be something that you want to hear or see, right? But you know, for instance, you know, it was one of those things like week after week, it was like 1,000, 800, 1,500, 800, 1,600, 2,000. Then the next week, it was like my next patron review, 31. So I went from having hundreds of views to, you know, over a couple thousand views to like having a view count of 31. So, but I didn't mind because I knew that my patron who paid me to react to this, you know, like they were satisfied with that. Like, you know, we talked about it in the comments and like it was really cool. And then the next week it went back up to like 1,700, and then the week after that
okay.
was like 1,700.
For a second, I thought it was 31,000. Oh, you're talking about actual 31.
No, like 0,
I thought you meant 31 patrons. Like
I was like, oh, no, 31,000 viewers. Whoa, what an increase!
No. That would be rad. But it's been really, you know, it's been a very humbling and very interesting experience developing this music channel more, which I never thought was going to go anywhere, because I put the least amount of time of work and effort into it, and it yields the most results. And I think it's just, you know, simplicity. I think it's so easy to overthink content creation in general. And, you know, I don't know. I love what I do across the board. I love working with content creators and content teams. I love developing my own stuff, and I love making stuff that people genuinely love. So, it's
so
a nice
if I go and become a patron of you, and like, I'm not going to tell everybody to go become a patron of you, but I will tell people to go and subscribe to your channel if you like the idea of the stuff that he's talking about here.
Yeah.
But if I become a patron, you say cover. All right. So you say you'll cover this band. Okay. I'm going to hold you law versus letter of the law. So a different sense of covering. I want you to cover a song, one of my songs, and I want to use it. I want to use it for a video. We talked about it. I'm going to make it. If I do a Patreon, you've got to cover it. You've got to cover the song.
I have to. So that's the thing, is like they pay to watch me react.
No, you said cover. So you're going to cover.
You know what, Josh? I'll tell you what. If you subscribe at the producer tier, I'll cover your song.
What's the producer tier cost?
The producer tier is $25.
He's gonna make it real quick.
$25.
The producer tier is $25 a month, and I'll read you.
Yeah, I'm in with that, dude. Like I'm in with that. These hands don't work no more. Just ask my wife. They're like, ow, that hurts. Like, yeah.
That's messed up.
Hey, the hands are messed up. You are correct. You are correct.
I always have. I upload to Patreon just every once in a while. It's kind of funny, like with the reaction, you know, like they pay and then I just basically put it on YouTube. So it's not like they get it just for themselves. It's like, look, I want to be able to benefit off this, you know, like as much as possible, right? So, you know, it's always it's always an interesting thing with Patreon, just because it's such a strange site to navigate a little bit. But yeah, let me read you the official perks of each tier. If
You need
you're
to go blow your nose, you can do that too.
no, I just got like an itch or something. What's happening with my nose? I don't know what's going on.
I love you, Gabe.
Yeah. There it is, tiers. Okay, so we have the tip jar. It gives you nothing. You just basically it means you're showing support for the value and time that is put into Wannabe Critic Productions and identify yourself as a true wannabe. I Want It All Now is $5 per month. You want all the episodes as they are available. This is exactly what you will get with this tier. Request a song. Here you can request a song to be played. Imagine you're grabbing a cocktail and the local singer/songwriter is playing some familiar tunes. Better yet, you've heard him before and you know he can put out the vibe. What are you going to request? He may not be the best musician in the world, but he always finds a way to make the songs come to life and feel like they were made for you. So that sounds like the tier for you, Joshua. The request queue. This tier includes everything so far, while now giving you the opportunity to ensure that whatever you want to see gets seen. Whether it be an album review, a who would win matchup, or even if you want to see Gabe play a game. This ensures you will get to see that. As long as you don't, request outside anything in the realm of, unusual family-friendly content.
Sure.
Brazilian fart porn.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
and then the producer tier, this is the final tier for those who wish to go above and beyond. This includes everything mentioned before, but now you are officially a producer and will be recognized as such on every podcast production for that month, which is the Wannabe Critic Podcast, Game Club, the Midnight Run, Who Would Win, A Guy and His Wife, all of it. So that means
how much is that one?
$25 a month.
Oh, so I'm a producer. I'm a producer, baby. Yeah, I'll get it.
Should you so desire. There you have
Patreon
it.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get that. I need you to work on that song for me, so that we can work. And I'm gonna use it. I will credit you in the video that we do for sure. And
it better not be like Through the Fire and Flames or something like that. You know what I mean?
No, it's that chemical bomb one that I was sending on over to you. Anyways, man, you're so youthful that you just like I'm pretty sure that you could just like talk forever. However, I'm old and I'm tired and I need some food in my belly.
There you have
so
it.
You're the host. I'm not trying to tell you to what to do, but you're the host, brother.
Well, here's what Weird Gaming Adventure said to me in the Discord chat. It just says, "End it, yo." So that's what I'm gonna say to you. We are ending it, yo. You have officially been taken over by the Wannabe Critic himself. That tingling feeling you're gonna feel tomorrow, that just lets you know that I was here. Just so you know. Mic drop.
Tingling feeling anywhere on all of your orifices.
Basically.
Oh man.
Oh, tell everybody where they can find you, Gabe.
All right. You can find me over at the Wannabe Critic on YouTube. You can find our podcast channel for all of our group content, our big group content over at the Wannabe Collective. You can also find me reacting to music at Wannabe Music Reviews. One of our podcasts is called the Wannabe Critic Podcast, which you can find on podcasting platforms. And if you go to the YouTube banners for all these ones, we have like 6 podcasts or something like that. So you can find all of those in the banner and see all the different shows that we do and all that jazz. So if you're interested in any of it or all of it, go check us out there on YouTube. So there you have it.
Sounds good.
And you do a really good job. I'm sure Gospel's going to subscribe over there. I recommend that you all do. And if you like the content, make sure that you like his content. Make sure that you like our content. And subscribe because that shows us.
Give support.
Yeah.
Do it now.
We're asking for
subscribe
for $0. We're asking for a click. And that's exercise, guys. We're saving your life one click at a time. Just click it once though. Don't click it twice. Click it just one time.
It doesn't cost anything to sub. All right. If you don't sub, then these guys are going to end your life. All right.
Whoa.
Well, look, we wouldn't end your life. We wouldn't do it twice.
I should go.
He really means it, FBI.
Yeah, really, Gabe, we love you in a weird way. Gospel, love you in a weird way. Together, the three of us, this is Weird Gaming Gospel, criticized by Gabe podcast.
Yeah, you guys
show.
suck.
You guys suck. The old man up in the said, all right, guys, we're
Thank
outta
you for
here.
having me. It was a blast.
Take care.
All right. Later, everyone.